You guys know the drill. Another day and another roundup of the latest Broncos head coaching news, rumors, buzz. We're going to round it all up and break it down for you on today's Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here with a lot of ground to cover, as I like to say, on Dan Quinn and Sean Payton. So let's start with DQ. Shout out your favorite Blizzard. But Dan Quinn, the Broncos are interviewing the Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator today in the Dallas area. Now, I also want to note that Dan Quinn was the original Vegas favorite for the job. That is not the case anymore. We're going to talk about that in the second half of the show, so keep an eye on that. There's also the element of awkwardness because the Broncos, which it's not the same people this time, right? It's not George Payton solely leading the head coaching search. It's a whole new group of ownership doing it this time. But the fact remains, Denver passed on Quinn last season for Hackett. And Dan Quinn knows you don't often get a second chance at being a head coach. So if you do, you have to make the most of it. And does he feel Denver is that good second chance here? I stand by this. I'm going to plant my flag at the top of this hill. Dan Quinn would be a better hire than people think. You know who you are in the comments section, ripping me a new one saying Dan Quinn sucks. I'm not saying Dan Quinn's my number one guy, but I would not be upset if Dan Quinn is hired as the next Broncos head coach. I think he would be a much better coach, and he's a good candidate than a lot of people give him credit for. Let's look at the Broncos interview list, though. They have conducted now all 8 interviews. Jim Harbaugh, of course, which we'll actually get to at the end of the show, backing out of the mix. So we're down to 7, right? Survivor mode here. This is the final of the first round interviews that the Broncos laid out. So I'm expecting a hire middle of next week, but there is one hiccup. Let's say the Broncos want Sean Payton, which it sounds like, by all accounts, that's the number one guy. Let's assume that's the case then. Well, Sean Payton still has some other interviews to do, including the Carolina Panthers. And unfortunately, a really sad story broke today about David Tepper not being able to conduct an interview with Sean Payton as originally scheduled because the owner of the Carolina Panthers also owns Charlotte FC, the soccer team, and tragically, one of their players passed away. And so David Tepper notably and admirably not conducting the interview and going to be with Charlotte FC and their personnel right now, which has resulted in the interview with Sean Payton being pushed back a couple of days. And if that's the case, what if Sean Payton decides, hey, I like Denver, I like the Broncos, but I want to do all my interviews first? And it sounds like the interview got pushed back to the 24th, 4 days from now. So what may have been a hiring on Monday, maybe it gets pushed back to next Friday or something like that here. So moving on, we got some other news to get to. Zach Stevens, we shared this tweet, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever. I wanted to bring it back up, though. The Broncos interview committee for the first round of interviews consisted of Greg Penner, Condoleezza Rice, and George Payton. That's going to change. According to Mike Kliss, George Payton will not be in the room for the second wave of interviews. So it'll be interesting to see when we get the second wave of interviews because they're still rounding out the first round of it. So in terms of everyone wondering, hey, when are we going to get the next head coach? If it's Sean Payton, it might have to wait a little while because if he wants to do that Panthers interview, it's going to be a minute before that second interview can get conducted if it gets to that point. One more thing I want to add. You might have noticed yesterday was kind of like Black Monday for coordinators. We had the Dolphins, we had the Ravens, and we had the Vikings all move on from longtime coordinators. So whoever the next head coach is, they want to build their staff. And maybe they want a player or a coordinator like, I don't know, Vic Fangio as their DC. Well, Vic Fangio just interviewed for the Falcons defensive coordinator position. Maybe they want Brian Flores, who's also interviewing around. The point I'm trying to make is a lot of these coordinator spots, these vacancies, they're going to start filling up. And whoever the next head coach is, he might want some of these candidates. So the Broncos need to giddy up because it's important to get good coordinators. Ask Dan Quinn. Kyle Shanahan was a huge reason for his success in Atlanta. Not the only, but a big one. Now, if you want Sean Payton to be the next head coach of the Denver Broncos, like today's video. Not talking trade compensation, just in general. If you would like Sean Payton to be the 20th head coach, which, by the way, do we count interim head coaches when we do that? It feels a little odd. Like, number 19 was Jerry Rosburg. He was a head coach for 2 games. Like, I guess so, but I always found that a bit peculiar. All right, enough of my TED Talk. Like today's video if you'd like to see Sean Payton be the next head coach. Today's Broncos Breakdown is sponsored by my favorite cereal, Magic Spoon. Growing up, cereal was one of the best parts of being a kid, but I had to give it up because I realized it was full of sugar and junk that you really shouldn't eat. But Magic Spoon is cereal reinvented. I start every day with a bowl of Magic Spoon. It tastes amazing, and honestly, it's too good to be true. Magic Spoon tastes exactly like regular cereal from your childhood, but is super nutritious with 13 to 14 grams of protein and 0 grams of sugar. Magic Spoon comes in delicious flavors such as cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter, and is only 140 calories per serving. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, and soy-free. I love Magic Spoon because it tastes great and it's good for you. I'm never going to go back to a regular cereal. Start your new year off right with Magic Spoon. Use the QR code on screen or go to magicspoon.com/chat and use my code CHAT for $5 off your own personalized Magic Spoon variety pack and stay on track of your New Year's resolution. That's magicspoon.com/chat and or scan the QR code and use code CHAT. Now, I've got that link in the comments and the description of today's show. Magic Spoon, by the way, is so confident in their product, it's backed with 100% happiness guaranteed. So if you don't like it for any reason, well, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. That link is in the comments and the description of today's show. Get it right now, magicspoon.com/chat, promo code CHAT. Shout out to Magic Spoon for sponsoring today's video, but let's talk more about Sean Payton, and let's talk about showing me the money, baby, because Sean Payton, he wants to be a rich man, and he's going to the right place to do that. The richest owners in the NFL, even when you combine the second, third, fourth, and I think even fifth, maybe not fifth, we'll stick with four, all those owners combined, Denver is still number one. So we got some new reports to report on, okay? Sean Payton is looking for a salary between $20 to $25 million. I know that's a big number. I'm here to say this. I don't care. Pay him whatever you want. It's not my money, it's not your money, and it does not count against the salary cap. So what do I care if they pay him $25 million, right? Pay him whatever you want. It's not coming from us. So for that, sure, back up the truck and give him all the Benjis he's looking for. Now, like I mentioned at the start of the video, Dan Quinn used to be the original favorite for the job according to DraftKings and other Vegas sports books. Now it is Sean Payton. What does Vegas know? Vegas likes to know not to lose money. So Vegas, in my opinion, might be a day or two ahead of the curve here, and that's why they have Sean Payton as the new favorite to be the next Denver Broncos head coach. So let's talk picks, right? You're not going to get Sean Payton without something. It's going to cost you a little bit here. I'm not going to dive back into what's been the last, week or so, would you guys say, of downplaying a first-round pick, especially a late one, which you're getting from the Niners. But I'll say this. The Saints want 2 firsts for Sean Payton. They're not going to get it from Denver. I've kind of thought about this more. I think that applies much more to the Carolina Panthers because, well, you might not know this, but the two teams are in the same division, and New Orleans is going to go, hey, if we have to play against Sean Payton twice a year for the next potential decade, he's 59 years old, could very well coach that long, well, we're going to want more than just a first-round pick for it. We want 2 first-rounders. So I don't think the Broncos will end up having to give up 2 first-round picks. Might cost more than just 1 late first, which we'll look at later on. But Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com did a really interesting interview with DNVR, and I wanted to share a little bit with you guys. He said, I've talked to a lot of people close to Sean. After he visited with the Broncos management and ownership, and he was really impressed with the thoroughness of their presentation, how very much competitive they want to be going forward. At this point, I'd honestly be surprised if Sean Payton is not the next Denver Broncos head coach. It feels like they are getting to a point where it's like, just shut up and make out, right? They keep talking about how the Broncos are interested in Sean Payton, and Sean Payton is interested in the Broncos. I can't say it over the airwaves, but you all know what I'm saying. Just do it already, right? Get it out of the way. Become the next head coach, because it is boiling up to that point. What are we waiting for here? Now, when it comes to a trade, I've thought about this, and this is my prediction. I think a trade will look like this. A first and a future third, and the Broncos get Sean Payton and a 6th-round pick. I know it feels weird to toss a 6th-round pick in there, but I feel like 80% of NFL trades always have a random day 3 pick going back the other way. So not 2 firsts, but a 1st and a future 3rd. And remember, in 2024, Denver has their own 1st and their own 2nd. Now, this year, they do have 2 thirds. They have their own 3rd-round pick, and they have a 3rd-round pick from the Colts. So keep that in mind as well. There's a little bit of Harbaugh rumors I want to round out the show with today. He's not in the race anymore, so it's why I saved it for the end of the show. But apparently, Jim Harbaugh reportedly got tired or maybe a little bit impatient on waiting for the Broncos to move forward with the interview process. And that is why, ultimately, he decided to stay in Ann Arbor. Zach Stevens tweeting out that, at least coming from Tom Pelissero on the Rich Eisen show, Harbaugh wanted to keep interviewing with the Broncos, but Denver wanted to go through the process. Kudos to the Denver Broncos. That's how you should do it. Quote from Pelissero, eventually, Harbaugh got to a point where he said, okay, I'm just going to go back to Michigan instead of waiting. I wonder if we will look back at this in a couple of years, kind of like Shanahan, where it's, dang, did Denver miss out big time because they wanted to proceed with interviewing Sean Payton, who maybe just gave the Broncos the worst case of blue balls, and they went with Dan Quinn, and it was a disaster, even though I don't think it would be, and they could have had Harbaugh if they just jumped on it from the start. Time will tell. If you enjoyed today's show, give us a like, get in the comment section, help us grow the channel by subscribing if you have not already. We're going to keep you guys in the loop on the latest Broncos head coaching search for the next week or so, or however long this takes.